Hi guys, this video is going to go over something called a box plot, otherwise known as a box and whisker plot. So box plots, here's what they look like if you look at this picture down below. It is a type of data display that is used to show how the data is spread out. So basically, you're trying to kind of see the middle number, what the range of numbers are, and how the data is spread out. So if you take a look at the box plot that I have some test scores from first period and second hour. If you look at first hour compared to second hour, you're going to see that the test scores in first hour are more spread out. They range from 60 is the lowest all the way to, I don't know, maybe about 97. So that's a big range. This is very spread out. Now if you look at second period, the scores are less spread out. You can kind of see that. The lowest score is here at 70. The highest is 95. So that's a smaller range of test scores. So again, a box plot is used to show how data is spread out. And you can also see how it is split into 4 sections. So basically, if I took all my test scores, this section right here is going to be 25% of the test scores. Okay, this section right here is another quarter. This is another quarter. Here's another quarter. So basically, if I took the first 2 sections, that would be half of my test scores were below 80, I could say. And half of them, here's 50%, 25, 25, half of them were above 80. Same thing down here. I could look down here and I could say, well, 50% of my test scores are above 85. If I look here, this is a quarter of the data, and here's another quarter. So 50% is above 85, and I could say 50% of my data is below 85. So I'm going to show you how to make a box plot, but before we do that, we're going to look at some key vocab. All right, so our first key vocab word that you're going to hear come up with box plots is called the minimum, or another word for that is the lower extreme. And what that is that is the smallest data point in your set. So right here, I just put a green dot. That is the smallest number that I spent on my groceries that week. And that actually looks like that's about $80 if I put 80 there. It looks like it's counting by, 90 I mean. It's counting by tens. So the maximum, okay, or the upper extreme is the largest data point. So if I look way up here, that would be 140 on this graph. Okay, so here we had 90, that was the lower extreme, and then 140 was the upper extreme. All right, the lower quartile is the medium of the lower half of the data. So another word for that is the first quartile. That's this end of the box right here. So that would be 110 in this problem here. So this is called the lower quartile or the first quartile. Okay, the upper quartile is the other side of the box. So that would be right here. I'm just marking it in purple. That would be 130. So that's called the upper quartile or the third quartile. The median, you guys already know the vocab word median, that is the middle number. So the middle number is shown in the middle of the box, which is right here, which is 120 in this problem. Okay, the range, that's the distance between the lowest and the highest data values. So my lowest is 90, my highest is 140, so to find the range, I'm going to do 140 minus 90, so that is how much space is between the highest and the lowest. And that ends up equaling 50. So that means there's a range of 50 from the least amount I spend on groceries to the highest amount. Okay, and then finally, the interquartile range, which you're going to hear as IQR, is the difference between the first and the third quartile. Okay, so the first quartile is right here. That's 110. The third quartile is the other edge of the box. So I want to know how much space is between there. So from 110 to 100 and looks like 30, I'm going to subtract 130 minus 110, which ends up with 20. So between those 2 data points, it is a range of 20. All right, so now I'm going to show you how you actually make a box plot, which will kind of help you understand the vocab. All right, so the first thing is here is the data that I was given. Here are the ages of all of my cousins. So you can see that my lowest cousin is 2, the age, and then the highest age of one of my cousins is 22. Okay, so the first thing you need to do when you make a box and whisker plot is you're going to order the data from smallest to biggest. Now, I already have it in order for us. So it's already in order. All right, second thing you're going to do is you're going to find the middle number. So what I like to do is go one from the low, one from the high. I keep kind of going one low, one high. You guys know how to find the median. We've done this before, one low, one high. Now there ends up being two numbers in the middle, 10 and 12. So if that happens, what you need to do is find the average between the two. So what I do is I'm going to add 10 plus 12, which is 22, and then divide it in half. So again, you guys should know average. So you just average those two out, and you end up with 11. That is your median. So I'm just going to mark that. Okay, so that's my first step. All right, second step is now I'm going to come, if you guys notice, I split my data in half. Half of my numbers are over here, half of my numbers are over here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this lower half of data and split this in half. So again, I'm going to go one from the low, one from the high, one from the low, one from the high, and I'm left with 5. This is called the first quartile. Or another word for it is lower quartile. Okay, so now if you kind of look, I've split my data into a part here, and then this big part over here. Now I'm going to come to this upper half of data and do the same thing. I'm going to split that in half. So I'm going to go one from the low, one from the high. Low, high, and I'm left with 18 in the middle. This is called my third quartile. Okay. So now the next thing that you have to kind of find, which we already have found, or which are easy to find, are the lowest and highest numbers. So 2, that's called my lower extreme, and 22, that's called my upper extreme. That's my lowest and highest numbers. All right, now that we've done that, we are going to actually draw our box and whisker plot. So the first thing you need to make is a number line. So I'm going to come down here, draw a number line, and I need to decide, well, what should I count by? I have to get from 2 all the way up to 22. So I'm just going to count by 2s. So I'll start with 0. I'll go 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and make your number line. Okay. Now, here is what you're going to do to make your box plot. First thing, you're going to take your lower and your upper extremes. That's your lowest and your highest number, 2 and 22. And a dot goes by each of those. So there's my lower extreme. There's my upper extreme, 2 and 22. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3 other numbers I found, my first quartile, my median, and my third quartile, and I'm going to draw a box by those. So my first one's going to go at 5. Well, 5 is about right here. I'm going to draw a line. My median is 11, which would be right here. And my third quartile is 18, which goes right here. So now I'm going to connect those into a box. And then I'm going to connect my whiskers. This is why it's kind of called whiskers. So I'm going to connect my lower and my upper extremes. So I just created a box plot. All right, so now you might wonder, well, what does this kind of show? Well, it shows, if I just look at this quickly, that my cousins' ages range from 2 to 22. That's kind of a big range, from 2 all the way to 22. Now, I split all of my data into quarters. I split it into 4 sections. Here's a quarter of my data right here. Here's another quarter of my data, a quarter of my data, and a quarter of my data. Now, some of the sections are longer than others, and I wonder why. So if I take a look at this section, how come this part of my box plot is so small, and then if I look at this part right here, it's a little bit longer? Well, the reason for that is because there's a bigger range. If I look from here, it goes from 2 up to 5. Well, 2 to 5, that's not a very big range. But if I look from here, 5 up to 11, from 5 to 11, that's a little bit bigger range of numbers. Same thing here. This goes from 11 up to 18. That's got a pretty big range of numbers, 7. And then lastly, this section ranges from 18 to 22. It's a little bit smaller range, so that's why this is a little bit shorter. And there's the same number of data points in each of these sections, right? If you guys look up here, there's 2 data points in this section, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So that's why they each have the same number of data points. Some are just more spread out. Okay, so we created a box plot, and you know how to graph one, and you know some of the main vocabulary. All right, I'm going to quickly show you one more box plot, so we'll just make one more quick one. So here's the amount of points I scored in a basketball game. So first thing, if I'm going to make a box plot, these are already ordered from smallest to biggest. All right, second thing, you're going to find the middle number. So I'm going to go lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest, and I'm left with 12 for my median. I don't have to split it because there's one number in the middle. So that is my median. All right, now I need to split the upper half of my data and the lower half. So here, I'm not going to use the 12 now because that is my median, so you don't use that. So I'm going to go low and high, and I'm left with just 18 as my third quartile. Okay, if I come down to the lower half of my data, I'm going to go low, high. I'm left with just a 4. That is my first quartile. Okay, now that I did that, I can go ahead and make a box plot. All right, to make my box plot, first thing I'm going to mark is my lowest number, my lower extreme, which is 4, so I'll put a dot there. My highest number is 20, I'll put a dot there. Okay, then for my box, I also have my first quartile at 4, so that's kind of weird. So a line goes there, my median is 12, and my third quartile is 18. All right, so now I'm going to connect those. That makes my box. I'll connect my dot. On this half, there's nothing to connect because my point is right there. All right, so I just created my box plot. If you take a look at this one, it's kind of weird, but this section is so long right here because it's a big range of numbers. It goes all the way from 4 to 12. That's a big range. Here, it goes only from 12 to 18, a little bit smaller range, and from here, it goes from 18 to 20. That's a really small range. That's why that part's so little. And then here, it goes from 4 to 4. There's no range. That's why there's not a whisker over here. All right, so we're going to keep practicing with box plots. If you have any questions, please see your teacher.